Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Community Focus here on Channel 6 TV. I'm Kenny Fogle, your host. We're wrapping up a year. Matter of fact, we're going into winter time now, as winter time has just now come upon us. And you know what that means? That means there'll be road conditions, there's going to be school closings, there's going to be all kinds of things going on that doesn't normally happen on just regular days. We got the man responsible for all that. He's not responsible for the snow and the ice and all the other things, but he's responsible for a lot of making sure we can get to where we want to go when we want to get there. And that's Mr. Brad Spalding. He's first of all, Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken.
And second of all, I want to congratulate you. You just got promoted to what, road supervisor? Is that what the title was?
Technically, it'd be county engineer.
County engineer.
And you probably know I've been with the county now for 17 years. So I've been around the county, but this is a new position for me. You know, before I was at the landfill and over the solid waste group. So I've been exposed to everything out in the county, but this is a new position for me, and it's a learning curve for me to a certain extent. But technical is county engineer who is over the road department, and we've got some great guys that work to us, been there for a long time. And so a little bit what we want to talk today about is the snow plan.
Absolutely.
You know, a plan, you know, you build a plan and then work your plan. So.
Well, before we get into engineering, like you said, encompasses a lot of things. I mean, obviously roads, so you're familiar with everything that's going to go on this year. It's not like you've just been thrust into something. So 17 years of experience is you've learned a lot, I'm sure.
I have, and there's still a lot to learn, Kenny, to be honest with you. And I hope that's an attribute I always remember. Every day there's still a little bit to learn and take my time and try to do the best we can. So.
Well, the summertime or the spring, you're talking about building roads. I mean, obviously you'll be involved with specifications for roads, things of that nature. And that's it. And, you know, people don't realize it. It's what you do sometime in the summertime and the springtime makes a difference what happens in the wintertime as to what kind of road you design and maybe trimming along the side of the road or something of that nature.
Correct. And that's a really good point. You know, we do something called boom mowing a lot, which is basically a mower on the side of a tractor, and you see them going up down the road. The State Highway Department, Kentucky State Highway Department does, and we do it as well. That is an effort to trim trees back. In the wintertime, you know, you get a lot of shade from those trees. The roads don't dry out properly, which then causes failures over time. So that's a goal in order to trim those trees back, let the sunlight in, let the salt work, get some of the moisture off the road. It's been a good program for us, and we'll continue to do that. Another thing we do in the summer times and leading into the fall is what they call clip your shoulders off. You know, as your soil builds up and your grass and whatnot, doesn't let the water off the road. Well, that's a problem when it comes to snow and ice and whatnot. So you're right, a little planning goes a long way, and you know, we'll continue to do some of that and try to beat Mother Nature some days.
Well, the point is things just don't just happen all of a sudden, because within the next week or so or month or so, we're going to get a snowfall. I mean, more than likely, you know, I don't remember too many winters in my lifetime that we didn't get a significant snowfall, and somebody's going to slip off the side of the road, or somebody's going to do something, but what's going to happen when you get the call that it's snowing outside right now? How do you jump into action?
Well, there is a process because, you know, we have to be, one, concerned about the safety is the absolute number one thing. Secondly, you got to be fiscal responsible. You know, you just can't go out as soon as the snowflake drops and start throwing salt out. You know, you got to be smart about how you do your work. And typically we wait till 1 inch or 2 inches gets on the ground before we send our guys out. Usually in a day's time, the way the county works is each individual employee is assigned an area. We have 4 tandem dump trucks. We got 3 single axle dump trucks. We got 3 dually, you know, the flatbed pickup trucks. And those pickup trucks run the subdivisions is what they do real quick because they can get in and out easier. And they do salting as well. But everybody has an assigned area. And so when we make the call, hey, we're going out, everybody gets in their trucks and they take off. And they run their route, just like you would a garbage route for a day. And usually within an 8 to 10 hour day, we can cover the entire county. Now, Mother Nature sometimes is smarter than us. So some days it may be a little shorter, some days it may run into the second day, or we got to go back a second day for some odd reason because of the area didn't melt and whatnot. The physical court's been real proactive recently in planning. Specifically, we built a new salt barn. The previous salt barn held about 750 tons. The new salt barn is approximately 2,100 tons. And it's a typical, people probably see them all across the communities, these hoop barns, is what they're, lack of better words. What we do is we build concrete walls to keep the salt in, of course, and then we put the hoop barn over top of it. And that's been a real asset for us because we was 2.5 times, almost a little more than that, than salt than we typically have. Yeah. We actually mix our salt in a 2-to-1 ratio with sand. And that's an attempt to make it go a little further. The sand gives a little traction. A lot of our northern states do that. Yeah. And we've been exposed to it and had some pretty good luck with it over the years, and we'll continue to do that. Yeah. And so it really kind of makes it go further over time. And there is a certain amount of salt you're supposed to stick per mile on a road. And that helps. Sometimes you see a lot of salt get thrown on a road, and you'll see the edges of the road real white. Yeah. And what's occurring there actually is the salt's gotten dispersed out to the side. You know, when people are riding down the road, it gets hit or whatever, and it's probably where they put a little too much on it. Yeah. So there's a little give and take.
How long will salt last usually? When you put salt down, I mean, obviously, you know, if it's not going to be 24 hours later, you probably got to salt again if it's bad, but it'll handle for how long?
You're probably right, a day or two.
Yeah.
The determining factor on that is a couple of things. One, temperature. The colder it is, typically you'll stay there until, you know, it only works in a certain range. It's kind of like antifreeze. You know, the whole idea of salt is to lower the freezing point or the melting point, actually, of the snow or ice. But a real determining factor is rain or additional snow. And if it gets on it and then it starts to warm up, it'll wash your salt off. Yeah. And that's the reason you see a lot of times they do in Louisville what's called brine, which is a solution of water and salt together. But they have to be really careful when they do that, because if they spray it on the roads, and the state does some of that.
Typically they do that before it snows, right?
Correct. Yeah. But if you got a rain coming in and then it switches over to snow, well, guess what the rain does? Washes all of it off. So you got to be smart about how you approach it and whatnot. And I'm sure we'll make a few mistakes, and hopefully we'll minimize those and do the proper thing. So.
Well, one of the things people have to think about too is there's a difference between snow and there's a difference in ice. I mean, snow is one thing. I mean, I know obviously you can push that off, but ice is a whole different story.
Correct. And that's where we get into issues with getting it off, actually.
Yeah.
There's a finite temperature in which that ice, you know, when it switches over to ice, you really can't get it up, and it becomes an issue and a real danger. So getting the salt out on that is important. In the county, you'll notice we won't salt every foot of a road. Yeah. We'll hit the hills and the curves. Yeah. And if there's a good straight section and there's not a lot of tree cover or canopy, they call it, we may not salt that area, and it's in an effort to make it go a little further so we can get through our routes that day. Right. Second day, we may come back and hit a few of those areas as it starts to melt and whatnot. So that's kind of our routine. In the State Highway Department uses something similar to that. They actually have a web page which you can get online and look up Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and you click over and there'll be a little tab that'll say Salt and Snow Plan. And you can zoom into your road if you live on a state road, and it'll have something called a priority list. It'll either A, B, C, D, or unlisted. And you can tell where you list whether your road's in the priorities. And of course, the heavily traveled roads are going to be a higher priority. Right. And they just kind of work their way through it. So if people live on a state road and they kind of want to figure out where they're at in the pecking order, they're more than welcome to get on their web page and you know, ever so often look at it, because the road may get reclassified for whatever reason it may be, you know. So.
Well, I'm going to ask a real dangerous question, because obviously you've got your plan figured out. You know pretty much where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing, but I'm sure you still get phone calls all day long, people calling in saying, when are you going to get to my road, or how come my road's not, you got to my neighbor's road before you got to my road. So you're prepared to answer those questions.
Correct, and actually that's a very good question, Kenny. Going into this new career of mine as a county engineer, I had a former county engineer approach me and said, don't go crazy when you get those phone calls, because you cannot jump from one location to another based on every phone call that comes in. If you're out for the day, you systematically go through your roads and you work your plan. Yeah. Now, what you'll find is, or we'll back up on these pickup trucks that we have, if we really got an issue with somebody saying there is a particular section of road that's a danger and it's got ice on it, typically it's the ice is the issue, we'll pull one of those pickups off and go hit that real quick. Because, if we're having issues, there may be an isolated area for some odd reason. Sometimes the south end of the county gets it, sometimes the north end of the county gets it. So you kind of adjust your plan. Just because it's a plan doesn't mean that's it. Sometimes you got to readjust to what Mother Nature gave you and attack it the best you can. And we understand everybody's concerns, and we'll get to them. And the key is to get to it in a systematic way. So you're not wasting your time running from one end of the county to the other, and you try to go through it. So.
I know Mother Nature can be very unpredictable. I've seen 2 or 3 inches of partly cloudy on the ground before, because you listen to the weather forecast, and everybody gets all excited, and everybody's all prepared, and we don't get anything, or we may get 3 times as much. So you've got to be ready to go no matter what happens.
Right, and we honestly encourage people to call us. We don't mind that, and. Just understand, we're getting to it the best we can.
It's like spotters in a way. Somebody in Howardstown may have a different weather than somebody in Chaplin. Right,
and it's important for us to let them know their issues or complaints, and we'll try to address those and get better as we go along. Or, like you said, spotters are great. And give us a call, and most people call us. Trust me. The issues sometimes we get into, if it's what's called a chip seal road. People have to understand a chip seal road is a road that doesn't have asphalt.
Right.
It's a little fine rock that they put oil with it. That is something you cannot salt because the salt will break apart the chemical bond between the oil and the rock. So all we can do there is plow them. And sometimes that is an issue for folks, and we have to explain that on why that is the process. But if you start salting those roads, typically what you'll see is over the wintertime, they'll really start to fall apart.
Now, what's the jurisdiction? Obviously, state highway does state roads and federal roads, and you've got county road. Now, does the city do anything, or you do city subdivisions, or how does that work?
City of Bardstown has their own crew, and they're responsible for their areas. We're straight county, and we'll do subdivisions and county roads. And, the most important I shouldn't say most important. The ones we try to focus on are the county roads themselves. Subdivisions, we send those pickouts to do them, but most of the time your subdivisions don't have a lot of sharp hills or sharp curves and steep hills. We still get to them, don't get me wrong. We still put that as a priority, but you make sure your main thoroughways are plowed and salted. And those pickup trucks have done really well for us. That's something they implemented a couple years ago because we can get from point A to point B so quick. And like you said, if there's a problem area, we can call the guy and say, hey, go down there. And they carry straight salt on those trucks. And you can put it on some icy, slick spots, and it really works well, actually.
Well, actually, I got tremendous admiration for people out there because in another lifetime, many, many years ago, I had to do this for the state. And I tell you, the scariest job I ever had was going down a hill in Chaplin one night about 3 in the morning. And the only way I knew which side of the road I was on was the mailboxes were over on the right where they should be because you couldn't see the road. You had snow flying back. So that's a dangerous job. So if you see one of these county or state workers out, driving a truck, give them some room because obviously, they're in a very dangerous situation themselves because it's not easy driving a tandem truck on a slick highway, even if you do have a plow and salt.
And coming from my former background of the landfill and solid waste group, and it's the same way with the road department is getting the trucks going is usually not an issue. It's stopping them. And so people just need to give extra little bit of space. Same thing for those guys on the garbage crews. Give them a little extra space when you come up behind them because it's harder to stop. And the going is one issue. The stopping is the big issue. And so, any room they can give us, we will take all we can.
Brad Spalding, our county engineer here today, talking to us a little bit about what's going to be coming up here in the next few months for the snow and ice removal. And I'm sure we'll have you back in probably later on this year to talk a bit about what else is going on in the world of engineering for the county, because our roads are very important as most people want to get back and forth to work or get to Walmart and Kroger.
Oh, most definitely.
People want to make sure getting homebound is the most terrifying thing in the world to people. And all of a sudden, I love it. I mean, I know my driveway sometimes probably needs to get it quicker because I use that as an excuse to stay home for a few days.
Exactly.
But you can't use that excuse. You're
called
to action.
I've learned that real quick in my few days at the road department. So very important.
Brad Spalding, County Engineer for Nelson County. And again, if you have any trouble with the roads this year, be be on the alert. They are going to be out there. They may not get to you as quick as you think they could, but they will get there. And if you're on the, and I guess every road is listed. You know where they all are, so nobody's going to be forgotten. It just takes time. So Brad, appreciate you being here
Ken.
today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, and appreciate you all tuning in. We'll be back with more Community Focus here in just a minute on Channel 6 TV.